in line. Donald Trump makes a triumphant return to the Capitol for the first time since he left office. Will any Republicans speak truth to power? In harm's way. Robert Sherman heads out with the Eisenhower carrier battle group into the Red Sea. Will Iran ever stop shooting at our sailors? And beating the system. The super rich beat taxes, now they want to beat death. Peter Diamandis on whether $120,000 a year will buy him the fountain of youth. Welcome to the fairest show on television. First tonight, it's Juneteenth, the day America became a little more perfect. It's worth celebrating. In 1865, Major General Gordon Granger fulfilled the last meaningful act of the Civil War. He freed the final slaves in Galveston, Texas. And there are a lot of folks these days who make fun of celebrating Juneteenth. In certain circles, it's kind of a joke. It shouldn't be. People who do it are part of the problem. On the list of great things about America, and it's a long list, we as a country, fighting our bloodiest war to free a people from the bonds of slavery, ranks easily in the top 5. Today celebrates the fruits of that very significant sacrifice, the ending of America's original sin, paid for in blood. Today, President Biden issued a proclamation celebrating Juneteenth, 822-word proclamation. It extols all the things the Biden administration does for black Americans. In fact, I read the whole thing. It got all the way to talking about lead pipes. And in those 822 words, he mentions nothing about the greatness of the men who died for the freedom of others. That is perhaps the most significant thing anyone can do, to die for an idea, to die so others may experience the greatness of America. The Union soldiers aren't mentioned once. It is if freedom, if this day, if emancipation came almost by magic to the Biden administration. It wasn't magic. Granger started the Civil War as a captain, and through the war saw many of the 360,000 Union deaths. 360,000 Union soldiers. But Biden's proclamation leaves that out. It's kind of a grievance fest and lists all the ways America has or continues to fail in our pursuit of a more perfect union, all the things he has done. We should celebrate Juneteenth. But in the same breath, we must acknowledge the greatness of the men who fought and died for it, the greatness of the idea of America. Condoleezza Rice did in her piece for the Free Press. You should read it. We link to it on War Notes. On June 19, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston Bay and freed the last enslaved people in the Confederacy. When we celebrate their freedom, she wrote, we celebrate America itself. But today, and listen here, because this is bipartisan schmuckery by both Trump and Biden. Today, in a larger sense, not just on Juneteenth, neither of our presidential candidates will celebrate what's great about America. They will only tell you what's wrong and who's to blame for it. Over the past few years, it's quite in vogue to tear down statues and protest monuments as we look down the National Mall. At one point of true crazy, some said the Lincoln Memorial had to go, same with Jefferson. Even the Washington Monument was in question. That is where Mike Rowe picks up the story with his new documentary, Something to Stand For.
A film that celebrates a few extraordinary Americans who risked everything to build the nation we call home. Americans who gave us something to fight for, something to be grateful for. And today, all these years later, something to stand for.
Mike Rowe is with us now. Welcome back to the program. It'd be very easy to view this film as Republican-Democrat. You made it, so you tell me. I saw it much more as a traditional values versus progressive values look at America.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's pretty close. In my mind, it was more of an American versus anti-American. I still am clinging to this idea that liberals and conservatives and Democrats and Republicans can still be on the same side with regard to the answer to the question, do you see yourself first and foremost as an American? If you do, then you can kind of walk backwards from there and start looking for other similarities. If you don't, I don't really know what to say to you, right? Because if you're affirmatively opposed to acknowledging the incredible progress that we've made since 1776 in this country, and I don't mean to suggest that we're done. We got a long way to go. This country is never going to be finished. And I'm simply saying in the film, look, we were formed by imperfect men, but my God, the progress is mind-boggling. And this 4th of July, there's still a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot to be grateful for.
Right, in pursuit of a more perfect union. You say, first and foremost, we're Americans. If we can agree on that, then we can work backwards. I'm wondering, though, if it's first and foremost we're Americans who believe in what you just said, that America may not and is not perfect, but it's sort of the last best chance the world has. Patriotism polling from Gallup shows 18% of 18 to 34-year-olds are extremely proud to be American. 35 to 54-year-olds, 40%, 55% of people over the age of 55 are extremely proud to be an American. Is it more than just saying I'm an American?
It is, but to really put that poll into its proper context, you've got to look at the same results 25 years ago. In 1998, it was 71% of Americans described themselves as intensely or extremely patriotic. Today, that number is 39%, and under 30 years of age, it's the numbers you just put up. So I think there's a very, very real phenomenon that happens if you conflate politics with patriotism. Then you force people into a certain kind of box. And when we start to feel bad about our current crop of elected officials in any period of time, it's natural to start feeling bad about the entire experiment. It's also foolish because the experiment was rooted and continues to be rooted in ideas that, to your point, are the envy of the world. So it's well and good to look around at these United States and say, here's where we can improve, here's where we have to do better. But it's madness, and it's self-defeating, and it's self-loathing to look around and say, oh, it's as bad as it's ever been. It's worse than it's ever been. To deny the progress that we've made and to deny the incredible virtue that was baked into the people who made this country what it is, it makes us disconnected from our past, Leland. And when that happens, then it inevitably follows that we won't be able to appreciate the present, and we won't be able to even come close to predicting the future.
All fair points. I'm going to push you, though, a step further. You broke it down into American and anti-American. Is there something inherently disconnected between progressives who push that America is inherently racist or has these institutional problems and celebrating America and putting America first? And you think about the divide, progressive, traditional, urban, rural values. Those who are willing to sign up to fight and die and protect America and to save those values are overwhelmingly rural and traditional. States with the highest enlistment rates per 1,000, Texas, Alaska, Idaho, South Carolina, Georgia. Operation Enduring Freedom. 1 in 4 of the casualties was rural America, despite the fact that rural America accounts for only 19% of adult population in the United States. Without that traditional rural values, no matter what they're called, deplorables, people who cling their guns and religion, ultra MAGA, whatever it is, however they're scorned, they're still the only ones signing up.
It's the trap of the binary. That's all it is. You know, if I go out of my way to say, look, it's the 4th of July and I'm going to fly a flag and I'm going to wear red, white, and blue and I'm going to sing the Star-Spangled Banner at the top of my lungs, then it seems to be an almost knee-jerk reflex that the other side, define them however you want, is going to look at me and say or see a one-dimensional, jingoistic, blowhard who has no regard for the troubles that are currently ailing the country. We simply have lost our nuance. We can't say, for instance, in the same sentence that we have tremendous opportunities to improve and an obligation to do so, while at the same time pointing with unapologetic pride from the space from which we came. We have lost the ability to do that. And my hope with the film is to simply say, look, another thing that we can consciously choose to do is to be grateful for the country we have right now, warts and all. And that's simple. You know, I'm not talking about hair color or skin color or star sign or blood type or anything else that's out of our control. We can choose to be grateful. We can choose to work hard. We can choose a great many things. We can choose to pull down our statuary. We can choose to burn our flag. We can choose to deface the monuments and memorials that were built in many cases to honor the people that this film celebrates. All of those are choices. To your question, I would say if you choose to affirmatively deface a monument or a memorial, you're not protesting. You're not a liberal. You're not a conservative. You're not any of those things. You're just anti-American. And I didn't make the movie for you. I made it because of you, but not for you.
Fair enough. And I think you also did it to celebrate a lot of the people that you just talked about, right? The people who fought and many who died, going all the way back to the revolution, for that idea, as imperfect as it is. Here's you meeting a Korean War veteran in D.C.
When were you in the service? Where were you?
51 to 55. I was in Korea from March of 52 to January of 53.
Well, my dad was there that same exact time. He was there in 53 and 54.
Small world.
You weren't in the reservoir. You weren't in Chosin, were you?
Oh, hell no. I didn't want to go there.
Cold, man.
No, them guys, they were the heroes.
You know, it struck me as you were at the World War II Memorial when that happened.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else that's interesting. This film, so your viewers know, it consists of 9 short mysteries, like the old Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, right?
Okay.
And they're very deliberate. They're very deliberately written, and they're very ambitiously recreated. That moment happened while I was setting up to do a stand-up at the memorial. And as I'm sure you know, movies are very, very deliberate things. There's no freelancing. There's no behind-the-scenes stuff. But I saw this guy come in out of the corner of my eye. Andy Michael was his name, with a dozen other guys. They're on an honor flight. And, man, I just said to the director, grab the camera. I just want to go over and talk to this guy. And I'm so glad I did, because everything I was trying to accomplish with the movie and all of its intentional deliberateness was summed up in a random encounter with a man. When you see a 91-year-old guy with tears streaming down his face as he sits in front of a wall of stars and contemplates the price that was paid by others for him and how proud he was to return the favor. When you see that and you got a film crew with you and you don't point the cameras or get him into your project, well, that would make you an idiot.
All fair. On D-Day, I asked a couple of survivors, or I guess you could say veterans of D-Day, both, if their buddies who died would be proud of what America has become. The answers to it were fascinating. Give us some hope to end this. Did you find people who would become the greatest generation again if called upon?
Well, no, but I wasn't looking for them either. What I was looking to do was simply tap the country on the shoulder and say, look, I get it. There's a lot of new curricula in schools. There's a lot of revisionist history. There's a lot of looking back through the lens of today's values. It's so much easier to judge than it is to think. And I wanted people, first of all, I just wanted to entertain them and tell a good story, but I also want them to really think about what they would do in the shoes of the people that we're going to meet in their time. And to also ask yourself candidly, what's your great-great-great-great-grandkid going to think 160, 200 years from now? When they look back at us, right, are they going to think about who we were and what we did in 2024, or are they going to judge? Are they going to pull the statues down? What are they going to do? What are we going to do with the meat eaters 200 years from now, right, when we look back? How are we going to remember them? So, look, there's room for grace and there's room for humility. In fact, those two things are essential, I think, if we're going to move forward in anything that doesn't look like some kind of crazy civil war.
Well, that is both profound and, I guess in some ways a little scary to think about, that we now have to consider that as a possibility, especially on this day where what the Civil War was about finally ended. Mike, thank you. We appreciate it.
Anytime, Leland. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The mother of Hunter Biden's 5-year-old daughter says the little girl has never met her grandfather, the President of the United States. Her first TV interview following the Hunter Biden verdict. And later, money can buy big boats and fancy jets. People can debate if it will buy love. But can it buy you new years, the new moment to live forever?
They say that they are capable, they are well armed, and what is currently happening in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden is unprecedented and unlike anything they've seen before.
Captain, from Yemen where? Okay. Right to the same ship. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Completely innocent ship that was just hit by the Houthis today. This is every day.
How legitimate are their capabilities?
Yeah, I think people undersell the Houthis' capability. This anti-ship ballistic missile is a game changer.
They're a legitimate terrorist organization, and they conduct attacks almost daily out here.
8 months ago, the average American would have had a difficult time telling you exactly who the Houthis in Yemen are. Since late last year, the Houthis have captured a ship, they have sunk a ship, they have also killed 3 sailors here in this region.
They've got a lot of advanced weaponry that they've purchased or been delivered from their friends in Iran, and they have no problem using it.
I think our objective is to save lives, to put it very simply.
No aircraft carrier has been busier in the last 5 years than the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. Over 550 days of deployment within that span. This ship was deployed once again in October. It first arrived in the Red Sea in November.
This word keeps coming up. This is unprecedented. The Houthis have decided to attack maritime shipping.
Over 10% of trade goes through the Red Sea itself, about 30% of the globe's container traffic.
They've also decided to attack U.S. warships as well.
We're the first ship targeted by an anti-ship ballistic missile. We're the first ship to shoot down an anti-ship ballistic missile in combat in history.
So we just saw what's behind this door, which is the Combat Information Center. From the second that one of those missiles is fired at this ship, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. How to intercept, where to intercept, what kind of tools to be used. All of those decisions, in some cases, have to be made in a matter of seconds.
We've got some exquisite capabilities, both defensive and self-defense.
Naval aviators had played such a key role in the United States' efforts against the Houthis in Yemen, being able to go on offense.
When you're sitting in that cockpit and you know that there are very legitimate adversaries that are on the ground, what goes through your mind?
I try to pretty much just think about the mission itself. Launching into the pitch black night at like 2 a.m., going in there knowing that we were the tip of the spear in the case.
You have nearly 5,000 souls aboard here. What keeps you up at night?
I'll tell you this. I keep the Houthis up at night. I sleep soundly.
The United States Navy has a tall order in front of them. One officer described it as trying to defend every inch of water from Maine down to Florida. And the attacks aren't stopping. Just today, a merchant vessel was struck twice in the Gulf of Aden. The Houthis claim this is all about what's going on in Gaza right now. The ship they hit today, no connection to Israel, no connection to the United States. Leland.
Yeah, the point that the Houthis are not giving up means the Iranians are telling them not to, which speaks volumes to the place we are in the world today. Robert, great reporting. We'll keep hearing from you tomorrow on NewsNation, obviously, and Robert's pieces will stay with us through the weekend and then again on Monday. Robert, thanks. Her daughter is the president's granddaughter, but the little girl has never met Joe Biden or been held by her dad, for that matter. In a NewsNation exclusive, Hunter Biden's former girlfriend and mother of his child reacts to Hunter looking at time in prison. We don't know if Hunter Biden's going to go to prison over his gun convictions. It seems highly unlikely. It also seems unfair if he did. But if he does, he'd have to say goodbye to his 5 children from 3 different women. The second youngest is 5-year-old Navy Roberts, whose mom says he's never been held by her dad, Hunter. She also says Navy has never met her grandfather, that is the President of the United States. London Roberts writes about those missing relationships and about her own troubled relationship with Hunter Biden in her new book, Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. She joins us now in her first interview since Hunter Biden's conviction. I think every day almost now, certainly of the trial, we learned just how wild the life with Hunter would have been, or how wild his life was. You know, the Biden family really tried to crush you over and over and over again, and ignored you and belittled you. And I'm wondering now if Hunter's conviction and the public acknowledgement of how crazy his life really was and the things he did isn't somehow justice for you.
I wouldn't say justice for me. I'm not out there to get justice and tell my story as some sort of, political warfare hit job. This is solely my story of emotions that I've had to process over years, and in hopes that I can help other people going through these same dark times.
So what are your emotions now that he's been convicted? This is the father of your child is now a convicted felon.
Well, you have to respect the judicial system, and also respect that all individuals are held accountable, regardless of who they are and where they come from. And, but as the mother of Hunter's child, my primary concern has always been the well-being of her and the future for her and his relationship. And it's my hope that the resolution of all these legal matters allow for them to continue that positive relationship.
Okay. Joe Biden flew back up to Delaware to be with Hunter today. I don't know if you saw that, and embraced him on the tarmac. And Joe Biden has made this huge point of being there for Hunter and how important it is for him to be there for his son and on and on. Why do you think he never wanted to be there for his granddaughter?
I'm not sure. I can't explain, his behaviors and why they've chose not to step in. I've been advised by my attorneys that a lot of times grandparents don't step in until their child, steps in. And that's something new. That's something that, my child and her father are building. They're building that bond. So you would think hopefully, with time. But
yeah, we're looking right now at Hunter with one of his other children there at the tarmac in Delaware right after his conviction when the president came in. When you and Hunter were together, did he ever talk about his father as a parent? Did he describe his dad as a good parent, as overbearing, as he was trying to make him proud? How did we get from just a parenting perspective from somebody who seems to want to be there so much for his son and so little for his grandchild?
He did. Hunter always wanted to make his dad proud. That was a big thing. He wanted to make his dad proud, his children proud. It was something that he always wanted. He never really talked about anything other than that. I mean, you could tell by conversation that he just wanted to make him proud.
But not in terms of what Joe Biden was like as a parent that would raise somebody who had these issues? Did Hunter worry that his behavior was disappointing his dad? How about that?
Yes, he did. He worried about disappointing his entire family. Not
Tell
just
me about
his
that.
dad.
What did he say?
Several times, he would always talk about how he felt like he was a disappointment. And he hated that. He hated feeling like that and feeling like the black sheep and stuff. But this was during a dark time for Hunter when I knew him, and he was battling his addiction, and he felt like he was a disappointment at that time.
What would you say to him?
Try to encourage him. You know, like, what can you say to someone who feels like a disappointment and you see such potential in them, such great potential, you try to encourage and you would.
Where does the arc of, and you make a great point that you only want to be there for your daughter and you want the very best thing for your daughter. Is the very best thing for your daughter to have a relationship with her grandparents? Is that important to you that sometimes happens?
Well, as a mother, I feel like there's not enough people that can love your child. And if there are grandparents that can step in and play a positive role in your child's life, I don't see, how that's a bad thing.
Okay. I want to play for you a soundbite from the president's spokeswoman about you and your daughter. Take a listen.
I wanted to ask about the trial going on in Arkansas with Hunter Biden and the child support. Are the president and First Lady monitoring that? And how come they haven't acknowledged the seventh grandchild?
I'm not going to speak to that from here.
Why not?
Go ahead.
Have we sort of moved on from that in the sense, do you feel as though the president has acknowledged your daughter in a way they should have?
He made a public statement, to acknowledge her. However, stepping into her life, they've chose not to do that, which I've told you earlier. I've been advised by my attorney as to why that is. But I think from a PR stance, it's better, to just avoid it. It's a family matter and personal matter. I believe.
What are we going to learn?
An interview at some point.
What are we going to learn about Hunter? What insights do you think are most important out of the book to help us understand this person, Hunter, who has become this odd figure in American politics, who I think you make a great point, is worth feeling sorry for in some ways, in a lot of ways is worth feeling sorry for. But to be fair, has also done things that are really wrong.
Hunter's, of course, as we all know, battled addiction, but he's battled dark times and dark places, dark tragedies throughout his life. And I think that, you learn...
It almost sounds like you're defending him.
I wouldn't... I'm not saying that. I'm saying what you would learn from the book is not this villain that the media portrays him to be. You hear these charges and this is going on. He did this and he did that. But at the same time, he cares about people. He tries to do good. Right. And if you build a personal relationship with him, you learn those things, those personal traits that you get from actually, from knowing someone.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're glad to have you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
Trump shows no signs of tamping down his reckless rhetoric. As we close in on the RNC convention, why won't Republicans tell him to stop? The book, written by John Kennedy, Profiles in Courage, was about what happened inside the United States Capitol, and we did not see any profiles in courage from Republicans today. Republicans lined up to fawn over the former president, and in meeting after meeting, they listened to him, they complimented him, and then they came out to talk to the press and send a unified message to the American people.
President Trump brought an extraordinary amount of energy and excitement and enthusiasm this morning.
We are 100% unified behind his candidacy and are ready to get to work on behalf of the American people.
A lot of unifying messages from President Trump, but also optimistic messages.
Unity, lots of unity, more unity, tons of unity. I'm not an elections expert, but unity does not win elections. It's nice, it's helpful. Means that there's not going to be stories written about divisions inside the Republican Party. But Republicans weren't unified in 2016 at all, and Trump won. They were unified in 2020, and Trump lost. So unity really isn't that big of a deal. What this shows is that Donald Trump is the king. So no matter what he says, no matter how absurd it is, no matter how untrue it is, no matter how divisive it is, no matter how unhelpful it is to Republicans, Republicans will never tell him to stop saying stupid things. They cannot do it publicly, and they will not do it privately. Like today when he reportedly called Milwaukee a terrible city. Horrible city, quote. That's a problem. Milwaukee is in Wisconsin, a swing state and host of the Republican convention. So Trump is now playing cleanup. In an interview with Fox, Trump said he was specifically referring to crime in Milwaukee. And when Donald Trump says something, it's normally because people have said things to him. Someone told him that things in Milwaukee were horrible, so he said it's a horrible city. To be fair, that's what happens. In his interview, Mr. Trump also made some news when he talked about a potential running mate.
Was your pick for VP in that room with you?
Probably, yeah. Probably. I don't want to go, but probably. I think we'll probably announce it during the convention.
We start tonight with Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida, who is under consideration to be Donald Trump's running mate, although I promise not to ask you about that. It'll be your first interview where the question doesn't come up. Congressman, it's nice to see you. Thank you. One word we kept hearing from President Trump today over and over was unified. The Republicans are unified. Are you unified around winning or unified around Donald Trump?
Well, we're unified around winning. Donald Trump is our nominee. He's the leader of our party. So, of course, we're united unanimously behind him to get him across the line. But today on Capitol Hill, President Trump talked about the work he was committing to do for members of the Senate, members of the House, our colleagues who might have tough re-elections, and even some of our candidates who are out there trying to flip seats currently held by Democrats up here on Capitol Hill. So it's an all-hands-on-deck approach. The president laid that out in his remarks today with members of the House, also with members of the Senate when he met with them.
All right, fair enough. You know, one thing we hear from a lot of down-ballot Republicans, that is people who are running for House seats, people who are running for Senate seats, so often, especially in tight races, they get saddled with answering for everything Donald Trump said. Was there any discussion from the Republican caucus to Donald Trump of saying, look, we get why you do the rallies, but if you could just stop saying stupid stuff between now and the election, it might make winning on the issues of inflation and immigration and foreign policy a lot easier?
Well, first of all, that never came up. Nobody even insinuated anything close to that. I think what you got to understand when you get into presidential politics is that how he goes is we're going to go with him. His coattails are going to be enormous in this election. And I think people at this point in America are sick and tired of all of the games that get played in media and, frankly, by the Democrats where they want to pick and choose words. What they're much more interested in is what is your agenda and what that means for them in their own lives. And in this presidential election, Americans are going to have a very clear choice between the 45th president and the 46th president. And it's without question that the lives of the American people were significantly better under the 45th president of the United States, Donald Trump. That's why he's going to be 47.
All right, so I'm not going to argue the polling with you, but I agree with you that the majority of Americans do agree that things were better under Donald Trump, at least economically. But you said that the word games don't matter. When President Trump said that he was going to look at possibly banning contraception, that means that every Republican Senate candidate and every Republican House candidate is going to have to answer for those things. Words do matter, especially when you want to be the leader of the free world. And I'm wondering why, when it would be so easy, why no Republican would stand up and say, Mr. President, if you just talk about the things that you, Byron Donalds, just spoke about, rather than other stuff, it'd be a lot easier for all of us.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think with what the comment you just said, I don't even recall him ever saying that. It might have said in a line of thinking about a myriad of subjects. If you've talked to Donald Trump, he talked about it even today. When it comes to abortion, when it comes to contraception, those are things that, frankly, are going to be left in the hands of states. You even have the Supreme Court that just came out today essentially saying that the abortion pill, mifepristone, they unanimously rejected the challenge to that. So when you bring up these issues around something which is very personal, like contraception, the president has not weighed in definitively saying, oh, that we're going to move for some sort of ban. That is not the case. He has never said something like that.
To be fair, Congressman, he said in an interview, he said in an interview that he was going to look at it, and then about an hour later he came out and said, never mind. Now, you can say he misspoke, which I think he would agree that he did, but the fact of the matter is that's what happens. It's a problem for Republicans. The polling leads that and shows that. Biden head-to-head, Trump 46, Biden 45. Okay? Donald Trump right now is up 1 point in the decision desk average of polls. He's up in all the swing states. But he's up on the issues a lot more. Who's going to handle the economy better? Trump by 10 points. Immigration, Trump by 14 points. I was not a math major. That's why I went into journalism. Joe Biden is ahead on abortion. No surprise there. Mental and physical fitness needed to be president. Donald Trump is up by 20 points. So on all the issues, other than abortion, Donald Trump is up double digits, sometimes 20 points. It's unheard of. Yet he and Joe Biden are neck and neck. How do you explain that delta if it is not the American people, for lack of a better way to shorthand this, not liking mean tweets?
Well, a couple things. First, Leland, you just said in your commentary that he came out and said he would look at it, and it came out an hour later and said, no, we're not going to do it. America is tired of politicians who are automatons, who say everything perfectly scripted that the consultants bring them, because the history has demonstrated that these robotic politicians are not looking out for the interests of the American people. They're listening to consultants, they're listening to pollsters, and frankly, they're listening to people who do not have the interests of the American people first. That's number one. Number two, to the broader section, when you look at overall polling in terms of Republican, Democrat, yes, we're a divided nation when it comes to Republicans and Democrats. We definitely know that. I think a lot of that has to play with the demonization by the Democrats and frankly by the media onto Donald Trump the last 8 years. But I believe in this election, people are going to look at the results for their pocketbook at home, the results of policy in America, and it's without a doubt that Donald Trump is the choice.
I'll add, because you didn't, he's going a lot of places that Joe Biden isn't willing to go, like on the campaign trail, which we understand. And any of his surrogates are welcome. Joe Biden surrogates, they often decline, but they are more than welcome as well. Congressman Donalds, thank you as always. We appreciate it. Look forward to having you back, hopefully on set sometime.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Living longer is no longer just about diet and exercise. Some are going to extremes to delay, even conquer death. Up next, Peter DeMatteis spending $120,000 a year to stay young. So can this guy live forever? We'll see in a minute. To cheat death, too. The LA Times quote from a story, "Can money conquer death? How wealthy people are trying to live forever." Peter DeMatteis, a week away from turning 63, bounds out of a Starbucks on a recent morning with a cup of decaf, his daily medley of 70 supplement capsules in his pocket, and tucked under his left arm, a box of freshly deposited bodily things that he's going to have tested. We definitely have questions. Peter is with us. He's founder of HealthSpan and author of Longevity, Your Practical Playbook. I saw you smile when I said, are you going to live forever? So we'll start there. Is that the idea?
Idea is to live a long and healthy life and have the vitality and love it, right? There is so much tech that's driving this. There are incredible breakthroughs in diagnostics and therapeutics. You know, every year I bring together a group of 40 wealthy individuals. These are family offices, venture capitalists, in what I call a longevity platinum trip. And we visit the top researchers, the top labs, the top entrepreneurs. It's $1 trillion industry. The most wealth ever will be created, but it's also the greatest gift you can give humanity, right? I'm not talking about being drooling in a wheelchair at age 150. It's how long can you have the vitality and the energy and feel great? So this platinum trip is where I go and I find the top breakthroughs and I make them available to myself, my venture fund, my companies. There's a lot going on.
Look, I admire your being honest and saying, like, hey, this is a money-making venture. And I guess in a way you're the guinea pig, right? Because you're doing all this stuff. Harvard CDC Congressional Budget Office lifespan from the 1990s. 1947, the average lifespan was 47 years. 2024, it's now 80 years. And I think you make a very good point. And a good buddy of mine does. Maybe it's California. He lives in California, too. He says that it is not about quantity. It's about quality. And look, California is good for you. You look much younger than 63 years old. But the amount of money that you were throwing around here, billions of dollars, and some of the most wealthy people in America and the world, on and on and on, does this end up being like yachts that only the super rich are able to indulge, or do we get to a point where normal folks can replace going out to eat a couple nights a month, and that is their ticket to this substantially better, healthier life?
Yeah. I mean, there's two things. First of all, there's a lot of things you can do right now that don't cost you anything in the form of sleep and diet and exercise. If you go to diamandis.com/longevity, you can get a copy of this book for free, and you can learn about that. On the flip side, there are companies like Cellularity that is doing stem cell banking and stem cell supplementation and natural killer cells and Immunis and Gamito. There's all of these companies that are being heavily invested because it's going to be, like I said, it's the biggest financial return. It's the biggest marketplace. But it's also, if you think about it, what gift could you give anybody? It's the greatest benefit we can give humanity.
Cheers to a long and healthy and happy life. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it. Thank you. Here's Chris.